During the earthquake, I grabbed Victor as he tried to charge back into the collapsing building to save his beloved Autumn, a desperate act that cost me my leg. On the day Victor and I got married, that girl jumped from a building because her face had been disfigured. He never said a word, but day after day for decades, he helped me with rehabilitation for my injured leg. On our 10th anniversary, he pushed me pregnant into the middle of the road. Before turning to leave, he asked me, "Gloria, do you finally understand what it's like to be utterly abandoned and helpless?" As the car crushed my body, I finally understood how deeply he'd always resented me. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn at the exact moment the building started collapsing. This time, I released his hand. Chapter 1. Victor, run. When the load-bearing wall started to collapse, Victor in front of me didn't hesitate. He yanked his hand free from mine. I paused mid-step, my instinct to rush toward him checked by the sight of his retreating figure through the billowing dust. In my previous life, I desperately dragged him back, using my body to shield him from the collapsing wall. When the jagged stone struck, the searing pain overwhelmed my senses. Believing these were my last moments, I used the final shred of my strength to murmur in his ear, "Victor, I hope you find happiness." Later, when I woke in the hospital and saw my right leg amputated mid-thigh, I couldn't put into words the storm of emotions raging inside me. Realizing I could never fence again, the sport I loved most, I broke down in despair, sobbing uncontrollably. But Victor's mother came to see me. She got down on her knees, begging me to stop crying and saying she wouldn't get up until I did. The perpetually sunny and cheerful boy stood helplessly by my side, his trembling hands wiping away my tears. "Glo, let's get married. I'll take care of you for the rest of my life." At that moment, the profound love momentarily filled the abyss in my heart. I used to believe the depth in Victor's gaze was the love I had awakened in him. It wasn't until the car tire crushed my abdomen that I truly understood. It had always been pure hatred. "No, I need to save Autumn. She's still inside." Victor's hoarse shout cut through my memories as he violently waved me away. Victor's harsh shout cut through my memories as he wildly waved his arms, motioning for me to stay back. I gazed at his still youthful face, the past decade flashing vividly before my eyes. I remembered him accompanying me through countless rehabilitation sessions, his strong arms holding me tight each time I stumbled. But I also remembered our 10th wedding anniversary when he pushed me, now missing my prosthetic leg, into the center of the road. Leaning close, he hissed in my ear, "Gloria, do you remember what day today is? My Autumn has been gone for 10 years. She had just agreed to my proposal. Everything was supposed to get better. I want you to know how it feels to be utterly alone with no one to save you." His voice was soaked in hatred, like a sharp blade plunging mercilessly into my heart. The speeding wheels rolled over my abdomen, soaking the pregnancy test results in my pocket with bright red blood. That was the surprise I prepared for Victor for our 10th anniversary. "Stay back." Victor turned and ran upstairs, glancing back at me as he ran, convinced I'd do anything to stop him. But this time, I wouldn't do it again. Chapter 2. The rescue team found me and loaded me into their vehicle. Victor and Autumn were nowhere to be found. I had no idea whether he'd found her and managed to save the girl he loved. I closed my eyes, Victor's words from my past life still ringing in my ears. "Life and death are fated. Wealth comes from heaven. How dare you think you have the right to meddle with my life? I love Autumn, and I'd gladly die for her. What gives you the right to stop me?" How pitiful that our decade-long bond since childhood paled in comparison to the single month he spent with Autumn. Once driven and ambitious, he skipped a crucial exam on her account, losing all chances for any awards. He said he had never met someone who suited him so perfectly. Yet, he never stopped to think if someone so perfectly matched for him could even exist. The rescue vehicle took us to the hospital for checkups. There, I saw Victor's mother, her face haggard as she grabbed my hand. "Where's Victor?" I shook my head. "I don't know. But you were together. How could you just let him die?" The words caught in my throat. In my previous life, Victor's mother was initially grateful to me, but later she constantly used my disability against me, claiming her son's acceptance was some grand favor. Time and again, she secretly set him up with other women behind my back. Whenever I lashed out, she would clutch her chest and pretend to have a heart attack. Victor would then shield her and tell me to shut up. He wanted to go in and save people. I couldn't stop him. I looked at Victor's mother. I had nothing left to say. Victor lost his father young, and his mother single-handedly raised him. Now that he was on the verge of graduating, I wasn't sure how his mother would cope if anything happened to him. How could you do this? Why didn't you stop him? Were you just going to stand there and watch him die? How could you be so heartless? A crowd began to gather around them. Victor's mother pressed her hand to her chest, collapsing to the ground in wails. My son dated her for all those years, looked after her all this time, and now she just bolts out alone, leaving my son behind. A reporter beside her positioned a camera toward me, while a handful of bystanders lifted their phones to capture the scene. I could already see it. When this footage hit the internet, countless strangers who didn't know the full story would brand me an ungrateful wretch. Just then, a blood-stained stretcher was carried through the door. Victor's mother, who had been slumped on the ground, sprang up like a carp and lunged toward it. It was Victor, drenched in blood, his arm mangled beneath tightly wrapped bandages that couldn't fully hide the pulped flesh beneath. Chapter 3. Are you insane? Why did you have to save someone? If anything happened to you, how would I go on living? Her desperate cries echoed through the entire corridor, but Victor managed a pale smile. I saved Autumn. I saved Autumn. As long as Autumn is safe, I'm willing to do anything. The expressions of those around him shifted abruptly. Autumn? Could that be another girl? Wasn't he dating someone else for ages? Where did this Autumn pop up from? Isn't this moral blackmail? Your son's life matters, but others don't. As public opinion began to turn against them, Victor's mother couldn't even muster an explanation. Her face went ghostly pale as she collapsed backward, her incessant muttering finally ceasing. This time, it was no act. The medical staff rushed over to them in a panic. I turned around and walked into the examination room across the hall, not giving them another thought. The test results came back clear. As I left the hospital, I heard about Victor. They said he'd survived, but lost an arm requiring amputation. In this life, their destinies had reversed. He became the one who was injured, and he was also the one who saved his beloved. I hope Autumn can walk the rest of the journey smoothly with him. I stood outside the ICU, watching the blinking red light, when Autumn's face from my past life surfaced in my mind. When the walls shook and everyone was rushing out, Autumn clutched her phone, her voice firm and resolute. Say you love me now, or else I'll die right here. I won't leave, Hudson. If you don't say yes, I'll die right here. I saw her in an on-and-off relationship with that senior from the film department and heard her scoff to her friend. Victor? I'm just stringing him along. If I don't make it real, how would Hudson ever feel hurt? So I wanted to stop Victor. I wanted to help him escape a calamity that wasn't meant to be in his fate, even if he developed feelings for someone else, even if he'd brutally pushed me away for another. But I still cherished our years of friendship. To have a clear conscience, I wanted to pull him out of the quagmire. But since he was determined to jump, it was just as he said. Life and death are fated. Wealth and honor are decreed by heaven. Chapter 4. It had been a month since I last saw Victor. His right arm, once his pride for basketball, had been amputated, leaving only a short stump swathed in bandages that severely limited his movement. Victor's mother seemed to have aged a decade. Her voice grew hoarse, regained strength, only to turn hoarse again, until she could barely utter a sound. I brought a bouquet of flowers to greet him upon his hospital discharge, and calmly told him we were breaking up. Victor didn't try to stop me, because during his recovery, Autumn had visited him numerous times, declaring her love through tears and vowing to stay with him forever. I think this is a good outcome for both of us. After Victor left, I lingered in his half-empty hospital room, staring blankly. This was the same room I'd stayed in during my past life, where I'd foolishly believed Victor could save me. Now I understood. The only person who could ever save me was myself. Out of the corner of my eye, I expected to see Victor and Autumn sharing a tender moment, but instead found the petite girl wrapped in Hudson's arms. They were locked in a passionate kiss while gazing directly at me. Suddenly, my phone rang, snapping me out of my staring. I picked it up and saw it was my mom calling. As I answered the phone and glanced down, Victor had already reached the ground floor. Hudson was no longer by Autumn's side. Clutching a vibrant bouquet of roses, she rushed into Victor's arms, her face radiant with joy. "Hello, Mom." I answered the call, but my eyes never left what was happening downstairs. Victor had no idea what had just happened. He tried to hug Autumn, but his arm, now missing a section, strained with effort, and in the end, he couldn't lift it. "Glo, where have you been?" My mother's voice sounded frantic over the phone. In my previous life, when I lost my leg, she was absolutely devastated. Yet through it all, she never once reproached Victor. It was only after we got married that she mentioned to me privately a few times that Victor was a deeply calculating man, and she wasn't sure if he was the right choice. But Victor was always so obedient around her and especially gentle with me. I even argued with her several times over this, asking her not to worry so much. It was only after my rebirth that I realized it was intuition, one born of love. If only I had listened to her sooner, maybe things would have turned out differently. "Don't worry, Mom. I've already said goodbye to Victor." I softened my tone, but the moment I looked down, a jolt of electricity surged through my body. Not far away, Hudson stood with his hands in his pockets among the flower beds, looking up. When our gazes locked, a roguish smirk crept across the corner of his mouth. He raised his index finger to his lips in a show gesture. His eyes glinted dangerously, as if warning me to keep my mouth shut. Chapter 5. Actually, it's no surprise someone like Autumn attracts so much admirers. Even among the gathered beauties of the performing arts department, Autumn remains strikingly eye-catching. Her almond-shaped, profound eyes resemble galaxies swirling with starlight, casting an almost hypnotic spell whenever her gaze meets others. It is said that several renowned directors had already approached Autumn with scripts, but she turned them all down, insisting she wanted to save her debut work for Hudson. Unfortunately, in her previous life, fate turned cruel. Her prized face got slashed during an earthquake, leaving her permanently disfigured. Back then, Victor left me during my post-surgery recovery to secretly visit Autumn, but was rejected every single time, without exception. He always believed that Autumn avoided him out of shame from her disfigurement, and that she'd taken her own life in despair after I forced him to marry me. What he didn't know was that on the day Autumn jumped, Hudson shared a post with a photo of him holding a girl's hand, their fingers interlaced, looking so sweet it made others envious. After losing a leg, I struggled for 10 years, but could never erase the lingering regret over Autumn's slight imperfection in his heart. He blamed all her suffering on me, not realizing she had never taken him seriously from the start. Back then, I was nearly in despair. Now, looking back, how is my so-called devotion any different from Victor's reckless, one-sided obsession? Chapter 6. When we returned to school, most of the campus had been rebuilt. We were about to graduate, and everyone was busy sending out resumes. In my previous life, Victor had excelled in every way. His striking presence in any crowd quickly caught the eye of HR recruiters. But now, he was reduced to sitting before unnoticed small companies, clumsily scrawling his name with his left hand. Although none of the companies said anything to his face, the looks Victor received held more sympathy than admiration. The despair I once endured from others' cold stares, he's now tasting it too. "Glo, could you share your perspective on balancing career and family?" The interviewer in front of me held my resume and looked at me with interest. I understood that single young women often face certain doubts during job searches. I turned my head, memories flashing through my mind. After a long pause, I spoke with conviction. I was born to be a mountain, not a stream. The interviewer was momentarily taken aback. Then, after a moment, she beamed a warm smile and nodded gently. "All right, Glo, Final question. You've selected the wheelchair fencing coach position. Could you share what personal significance this holds for you? My hand drifted beneath the table, resting on my right knee as I gently rotated my ankle. The quiet wonder of regained movement lingered, unshakable, in my chest. In my previous life, I faced constant setbacks and grew to loathe the fencing I once loved. Whenever my favorite competitions came on TV, I'd fly into a rage and smash the screen. It wasn't until much later, when my heart had settled a bit, that I began to explore wheelchair fencing. The coach I met handed me the foil and said, "Losing legs just means growing wings. You can still soar." Unfortunately, by then my physical condition had deteriorated, making it impossible to pursue my athletic ambitions again. Since I have the chance to start over, and now that I understand the pain that was inflicted on me, I want to help more people experience life's joys together with me. To me, faster, higher, further embodies a state of mind. I believe physical limitations should never shackle anyone's pursuit of dreams. Those were the words my coach said to me in my previous life, and they are also a belated consolation to myself. Chapter 7. As the event ended, I spotted Victor and Autumn. She stood next to him, strikingly eye-catching with her delicate, sugary voice. "Victor, don't worry. Even without a job, I'll always take care of you." Hearing this familiar exchange, I let out a soft chuckle. "I'll ask someone I know to hook you up with a job, the kind that's easy and pays well. I don't need your help. There's no way no company would want me." "Autumn, just give me some time, trust me." Autumn clearly wasn't into Victor. She was just being considerate and attentive, probably to dodge public scorn, but how could a golden boy like Victor ever stomach taking handouts from a girl? To this day, he still clings to the belief that he can make it big, yet there's an unmistakable stain on his academic record from when he skipped a crucial exam to accompany Autumn to a competition. Moreover, physical recovery is a lengthy process, and Victor has already lost the exceptional career foundation he built in his past life. To reach the professional heights he once attained would now demand exponentially greater effort than before. I walked past them without turning my head, but as I passed by, I clearly heard Victor deliberately raise his voice. "Autumn, I'll make you happy." Out of the corner of my eye, I caught him turning to wrap his arms around her waist, his gaze flickering subtly in my direction. I pretended not to hear and didn't turn around. The image of that 18-year-old boy flashed through my mind, standing downstairs at my house all night, clutching a jar of paper stars, stammering out his words to me. "Gloria, we both got into the same university. Can we be together? I will definitely make you happy." Closing my eyes, the drifting willow catkins and the boy's sweat-drenched white shirt still lingered before me. We had fought so hard to build our love, yet in the end, time wore us down. Chapter 8. Glow. A sweet voice broke through my thoughts. Luna came skipping over from the distance and tumbled into my arms. "Graduation play, come be an actor for me." Luna and I met through a student club. A film directing major from an affluent family, she's simply waiting to graduate before pursuing overseas studies. Though young and carefree by nature, her current preoccupation is the mandatory graduation project, creating a short film as her capstone assignment. I linked arms with her and nodded in agreement. Perhaps worried I might be upset about the breakup, she subtly positioned herself on the right to block my view of Victor and Autumn. Victor's mom came to school the other day and made a huge scene with Autumn, shouting that Autumn was born a Ling and will die a Ling, demanding she hurry up and give her a grandson. Who wouldn't lose it with a mother-in-law like hers? She kept glancing at my face as she spoke, like she was worried I might get upset. "Luna, Victor and I have already broken up. I don't want to hear anything else about him." I was at a critical juncture in my life, with far more important things than so-called love demanding my attention. I refused to let someone who'd vanished from my world forever intrude upon my life again. That would be punishing myself. Chapter 8. Luna's play is based on a real-life female principal from a remote mountain village. I portray one of the girls forced to abandon her education due to family pressure for an arranged marriage. During rehearsals, I realized we were in the venue next to Hudson's rehearsal space, where Autumn was playing the female lead in his production. The two of them are together every day, and their ambiguous relationship is known to nearly half the school, but because of Hudson's family background, no one dares to speak up. Victor had received some positive responses from the companies he applied to, but for reasons unknown, all communications suddenly went silent. He had no choice but to accept Autumn's arrangement, leveraging connections to secure a position at a company that reportedly offered a decent salary. However, this also meant he would have to take a subordinate position and become the very type of person he once despised, someone reliant on connections. In my previous life's timeline, he should be undergoing rehabilitation now, the most grueling period after limb loss, enduring repeated adjustments to his transformed body and confronting the most excruciating pain from his injuries. Victor's emotions became unstable. He needed Autumn's company to fill the void in his heart. However, Autumn's mind was not on him at all. To look her best on camera, she had to stick to a strict schedule, early to bed and early to rise. Perhaps it was the nourishment of love that made her even more radiant. During rehearsal breaks, I often heard her snap into her phone. "I told you I'm busy. The crew has a meeting tonight. I can't be with you." Sometimes when Victor came by, she would make up excuses to slip away and tell those around her, "Don't let him know I'm here." On Valentine's Day, Victor came with flowers to see Autumn, but she was busy rehearsing and didn't even acknowledge him. In front of everyone, Victor lost his temper. He slammed the bouquet to the ground and coldly demanded, "Autumn, I've called you so many times and you haven't answered. What do you want?" In the moment of stunned silence, Autumn didn't spare him a kind look. Accustomed to using her beauty to order boys around, she'd never been treated so dismissively. Instinctively, she shot back without hesitation, "Victor, I'm busy. We normal people have a lot to handle every day, not like you with all that free time." She stressed the words "normal person," obviously provoking Victor. He stood there frozen, too furious to speak. "Autumn, do you even have a heart? Do you know who I became like this for? Are you that shameless? I never asked you to save me. That was all your own doing. Maybe I'd have been just fine without you. Why the hell should I be your slave? Don't forget who got you that job. I don't owe you a thing, Victor." Victor was furious and anxious. In his haste, he tried to point at her, but could only swing his empty sleeves, nearly tripping over the chair before him. From a distance, I gazed at Victor, the boy once hailed as a prodigy by our teachers, now standing broken amidst the crowd, enduring silent shame and deception. Unable to bear the sight, I averted my eyes. A person only realizes the worth of something after losing it. Otherwise, they can never truly grasp it. Like protected Autumn, who'll never know what would have become of her without Victor. Just like Victor, he will never know that if I hadn't pulled him back, he'd be facing the very situation he's in now. So, he didn't thank me back then, just as Autumn doesn't thank him now. Chapter 9. On that day in Chapter 9, the rehearsal schedule was disrupted, and after everyone left, I stayed behind to continue practicing the movements. In the short film, I became a martial artist who emerged from the mountains, and I was supposed to showcase swordsmanship at the end of the movie. However, having been reborn, my movements felt unfamiliar, and I kept practicing over and over again. Later, the stage lights went out, and as I thrust the sword forward in the dim light, I suddenly noticed a vague shadow sitting in the audience. "Who?" I was startled, and the sword almost slipped from my grasp. "You are impressive." It was Hudson. He raised his eyebrows, his pitch-black pupils resembling a ghostly apparition. "Victor is not worthy of you." I thought he was here to warn me not to speak carelessly, so I took the initiative to bring up that matter. "I won't tell anyone about your relationship with Autumn." He chuckled softly, his brows and eyes relaxing, and he leaned closer to me, slightly tipsy. "Autumn is not suitable. I want a heroine like you. She's too delicate, while you are as resilient as wild grass." I caught a whiff of the mixed scent of perfume and alcohol on him, frowned, and took a couple of steps back. Hudson considered himself a great artist, and his family was quite extraordinary, so he often behaved a bit unceremoniously, flirting with flowers. Those girls might have their own motives and silently endured his harassment. But I coldly glanced at him and took 2 steps back. Who I am with is my own business, and it has nothing to do with you. I took off my costume, intending to leave, but Hudson chased after me and grabbed my sleeve. Gloria, has anyone ever told you that you are very different? If we were together, do you think Victor would be sad? Would you like to see him chase after you again? I admit that for a moment, I really felt a flicker of excitement, but I quickly suppressed that thought. I do not need a man's pursuit to prove my charm, nor do I need a man's regret to prove that I am good enough. My perfection does not need any man or woman to highlight it. I don't want to have any more connections with Victor. If you bother me again, I will make everything I know public, and it won't benefit you either. I coldly took off my costume and turned to walk out of the theater. Chapter 11. After that day, Victor began to coldly treat Autumn. He no longer came to the theater to find her, nor did he appear with her at school. He thought this was a punishment for Autumn, but little did he know that this was exactly what she anticipated. On my birthday, Luna gathered the entire crew to celebrate for me. That day, while we were at the restaurant, I received an anonymous text message. Glow, happy birthday. This address made me unconsciously think of Victor, as he addressed me this way in the first love letter he wrote to me at 17. But without hesitation, I pressed the delete button. As I left the restaurant, I was surrounded by a crowd as I walked back to school. I was a little drunk, and the boy next to me tried several times to support me but hesitated and withdrew his hand. I saw it but said nothing. When I reached the streetlight, I saw a tall, thin figure standing there forlornly. The boy beside me noticed first and quietly moved away a bit. Glow. Victor's voice was extremely restrained, but I could still hear the fluctuations in his emotions. Happy birthday. After that very brief exchange, I nodded. Thank you. He held an ugly paper star in his left hand. It's not folded well. He took a step forward and I took a step back. The howling wind blew, scattering the paper stars all over the ground, and we both did not bend down to pick them up. I'm going to Beijing to get a prosthesis. His voice carried a hint of grievance. In the 4 years we were together, I never missed any of his significant events. During all his difficult times, I was always by his side. In our sophomore year, he fell off his bike and injured his arm, blood staining his shirt. But he silently brought me the birthday cake he had prepared, yet at the moment I rolled up his sleeve, the boy who was a head taller than me pouted and began to cry. That once proud person looked so wronged in front of me. But now, during this difficult moment, I would no longer be there to accompany him. Wish you all the best. There was no smile on my face as I coldly uttered those words. Glow, why are you being so cruel to me? Can't we even be friends? A few people beside me looked over from a distance, their eyes filled with questioning expressions. I raised my gaze and stared at him. Victor, don't call me that. You don't deserve it. You think you can rekindle old feelings, but that's just your desire to gain some warmth from me after being abandoned and neglected. But you should know, someone like me cannot tolerate even the slightest betrayal. When you insisted on pushing me away, you should have understood that we can no longer be friends. Victor, don't think you can use your so-called deep emotional persona to trap me. Life and death are fated, and wealth is determined by heaven. That is your choice. You should bear it yourself. I smiled at him, then turned and walked over to my friends, heading off into the distance together. Chapter 12. The days leading up to graduation always seem to pass quickly. In the daily rehearsals, time has unknowingly flown by for a month. Hudson has started to send me expensive gifts every few days, sometimes a ring from a luxury brand in his backpack, other times a limited edition dress that's hard to buy. I know this isn't love at first sight. It's just a game for Hudson during his leisure time. I couldn't care less because I had received an offer from the provincial team coach and started to get involved in coaching. According to plan, I would lead the newly formed fencing team in training, and in 3 months, I would take them to an important competition. On Autumn's birthday, Victor suddenly returned. He came with his mother, wearing a newly fitted prosthetic arm, and chose this day to show up unexpectedly, likely hoping to break the ice and surprise Autumn. These words were told to me by Ling's mother, who, after experiencing such a big setback, looked much more haggard and was particularly gentle with me. Glow. Victor is like a child who never grows up, always needing others to worry about him. You have known him for so many years, and you understand him. Sometimes he does impulsive things, but he is very nostalgic at heart. In my previous life, she had said similar things about her son to other women after we were married, and the meaning was obvious. Hearing it now, I felt nothing but disgust. No one is a child who never grows up. He is a grown man and should take responsibility for his actions. As for his nostalgia, it has nothing to do with me. He has a girlfriend now, you should talk to her. After I finished speaking, I tried to leave, but Ling's mother stopped me. Auntie values you and wants to bring you two together. Otherwise, his feelings with the current girl are also quite good, and he has found a job. To put it bluntly, if Victor hadn't lost an arm, it wouldn't be her turn. When it comes to her son, she still speaks proudly, indicating that she hasn't told Ling's mother about Victor's job search and his quarrels with Autumn. Ling's mother doesn't really like me. She just thinks Autumn is not obedient enough, so she wants me to take over this mess. I know how difficult she was in my previous life, and I'm a bit curious about what kind of sparks would fly between her, who can't stand a little grievance, and Autumn, the pampered young lady. Then I wish them success, okay? I wish them a long-lasting relationship, and you don't need to go to great lengths to bring us together. I am not worthy of your precious son. Ling's mother snorted coldly, grabbed her bag, and huffed off, but the moment her hand reached in front of my eyes, I noticed her fingers were round like drumsticks, obviously showing signs of clubbing. It seems her heart condition has become serious, and I immediately stopped speaking, fearing that saying anything more might provoke her. Mom, come quickly. We're going to find Xiao. The moment she opened the door, Victor's voice came from the corridor. Then came a group of people, bustling with laughter and joy. I closed the door, squatted down, and quietly organized the props. Luna said that Victor had booked a large restaurant. So many people from both crews had gone to join the fun. Naturally, I wouldn't participate and left after tidying up. Now I have to go to the provincial team every day to guide training, so I naturally have no time to listen to this news. However, when I reached the school gate, I saw an ambulance rushing in, and a group of students were running towards the performance building in groups. Quick, I heard that a senior from the performance department was caught cheating by her boyfriend. Chapter 13. Luna told me about what happened later. She said that on that day, a group of people surrounded Victor and his mother, eagerly pushing open the dressing room door, only to find Autumn and Hudson in disarray, embracing each other. She quoted, "The two were in a chaotic embrace, oblivious to the world around them." Victor stood there dumbfounded, unable to utter a word upon witnessing the scene. Victor's mother was so furious that her face turned pale. She rushed over and grabbed Autumn's hair, intending to hit her. However, Autumn kicked her in the stomach, knocking her to the ground. Victor also rushed in to help, getting into a scuffle with Hudson. All of this was captured on camera by those in the crowd who wanted to record it as a surprise. I waved my hand to signal that I didn't want to hear any more, but Luna continued. Not yet. During the scuffle, someone pushed Autumn down, and she fell to the ground, bleeding a puddle. I was completely shocked, and a sip of water went down the wrong way. I heard that Autumn was 3 months pregnant, and now the baby is gone. I wonder how it will be handled in the end. Calculating the days, Victor and Autumn had not been together for 3 months. I wondered how Victor would feel upon hearing this news. Also, Victor's mother has been hospitalized. It said that she had a heart attack and almost didn't make it. She's still in the ICU. Glow, you're really lucky. Breaking up with Victor back then was the right choice. Don't get involved in their mess. You've had good luck. Being with Victor meant things went smoothly for you. It's a pity he didn't cherish it, and he deserves what he's going through now. Luna continued to speak animatedly. Her words were a bit extreme, but I knew she was genuinely standing up for me. All right, yeah, let's not talk about Victor anymore. He's just an ordinary person I've known for a bit longer. Let me show you a girl from our team from the day before yesterday. Look at how beautifully she moves. I took out my phone, and on the screen was a girl who had lost her legs to polio, holding a sword high and beautifully striking her opponent with a fatal blow. Before coming to practice, she almost succumbed to her parents and was about to marry a mute man she had never met, but this skill empowered her to boldly say no to her bullying family. Glow, you're amazing. Luna's eyes were misty, and she gave me a tight hug. When I become a director, I'll definitely turn your story into a movie. Chapter 14. Graduation Assessment. Chapter 14. The graduation assessment arrived as scheduled. Luna's short film was quite successful. At the end, a group of girls held hands tightly and recited loudly, "I am a mountain." Amidst the recitations, I donned my fencing suit and showcased my skills on stage. I wished to overlook the mundane valleys from the peaks of the mountains. As the fabric fluttered, I seemed to see a speeding car and a woman in a wheelchair, helpless, tears in her eyes, whispering in despair, "Help me, who can save me?" Across the unreachable space and time, I answered her question. "I will save you. I can save you." Then the traffic ceased its noise, my swollen belly settled down, and I grew legs again, standing up and pulling myself to safety amid the swirling dust. In this new life, I will learn to love myself well. The audience erupted in applause. I saw Victor. He was sitting in the crowd, crying uncontrollably. The first person to stand up and present flowers was surprisingly Hudson. I saw him holding a bouquet of roses that nearly concealed him entirely, walking towards me. "Gloria, you look beautiful today." In the center of the bouquet, it boldly read, "Gloria, I like you." But I did not accept it. In the end, Luna, as the organizer, took the bouquet for me and politely responded to him. "Thank you for your support." While packing my things backstage, I noticed a figure standing at the door, staring at me. When I turned around, it was Victor. He walked over, struggling to open his arms towards me. "Glow, we're graduating. Can I hug you?" We both knew that after this period ended, we would never have the chance to meet again in our lifetime. I saw the mechanical arm peeking out from his sleeve, and I couldn't help but soften a bit. "Glow, you must be happy." His voice choked, and in this new life, this phrase became his words to me. Fate's twists and turns turned out to be quite interesting. If only when I rushed in, you could have pulled me back. That would have been wonderful. I would have realized my mistakes. "Gloria, I'm sorry, I was wrong." Victor's lips trembled slightly as he looked down, tears falling despondently to the ground. I smiled. "Victor, those who dare to act but not to admit are cowards. If you don't regret it, I might still think a little better of you. You don't need to seek my forgiveness because I'm not important to you, and likewise, you're not important to me. It's a blessing that we will never meet again in this lifetime." I packed my things and left the performance room. This time, all my dark past should be completely over. Chapter 14. After leaving school, I rarely paid attention to news about those people. I only learned later from Luna that during Victor's mother's surgery, she almost couldn't get off the operating table due to severe bleeding. Autumn caused a scene at the Ling family home, and after Victor lost his job, he couldn't afford the surgery fees and was asking classmates for loans. Only Hudson repeatedly sent me messages. He almost incessantly reached out to check on me, telling me that he had broken up with Autumn, and asking if I wanted to be the lead actress in his movie. I never replied. In my view, a man who tries to pressure others into submission using so-called wealth and power is not a charming boss figure, but rather quite disgusting. I was busy guiding the team members for the competition, exhausted from running around all day. With the competition only 10 days away, I took the team to the venue. Disabled sports often require more time to adapt to the environment, so I was particularly anxious during the journey, fearing that even a minor accident could lead to problems in the competition. However, that night after we arrived at the hotel, I received a sudden call from Luna. "Gloria, have you seen the trending news?" Her tone was urgent. After hanging up, she sent me a video. In the video, there was a scene from the day of the earthquake, where Victor's mother was shouting at me in the hospital. The video was edited to cut out the beginning and end, only showing Victor's mother accusing me of standing by while others suffered. My indifferent expression was enlarged and turned into a meme, captioned, "His life and death have nothing to do with me." And my identity was subsequently exposed, along with the entire team I was leading. Netizens, unaware of the truth, commented passionately. How can someone who can't even save their own people be expected to care for the disabled? Is she doing this on purpose? After all, she's the coach of the Paralympics. Wouldn't she be happy to have more disabled people? Suggesting to disqualify her from the competition. What right does such an unscrupulous coach have to participate? The online attacks escalated from me to the entire team, and then it affected my team members. Did you offend someone? How could this video appear so conveniently? It's obvious this is targeted at you. Luna's words brought me back to my senses. I immediately opened a social media platform to find the original video, and beneath the repost by the initiator, I found a familiar avatar. I remembered it clearly, because in my previous life, Hudson used that avatar to post the message that drove Autumn to despair. It's Hudson. The moment I said this, I shivered. With Hudson's prominent family background, his intent to control public opinion with such disgusting tactics was clearly evident. Just as I was feeling distressed, a strange number called my phone. "Gloria, have you seen the trending news?" Despite using a voice changer, I still recognize Hudson's voice. "What do you want? Give up your coaching position and come join me, or else it won't just be your reputation at stake. I have ways to make your entire team unable to compete." After a long silence, I sat alone in the dark room, lost in thought. Hudson has always been a bit crazy. If I don't agree to him, it's hard to imagine how his outburst would escalate. Right now is a crucial time for everyone, and I don't want my personal grievances to delay the competition that everyone has prepared for so long. But I also care about my own feelings. This is a project I've been looking forward to for a long time, and I believe I'm capable of handling it. I don't want to give up easily. Glow, have you thought about the source of the video? Luna's words reminded me. That day, I tried to recall, but my memory was a blur. Besides Victor and his mother, there seemed to be no one else I knew present. This incident has happened so long ago that unless someone close to me intentionally leaked it, no one would think to use it as a threat. So, who could this person be? After thinking for a moment, I dialed Victor's phone number. "Glow," the other party spoke first, his voice urgent. The video wasn't sent out by me. His anxious denial only made me more suspicious. "Is it your mother, right?" After asking this question, I felt a tremor in my heart. The other party was silent for a long time, and I already had the answer in my heart. "Glow, I'm sorry. She's like this now. I can't blame her anymore. I'm willing to bear all the consequences. I'll go explain right now. I'll make everything clear, okay?" I let out a cold laugh. What identity does he have to explain, and how can he prove his identity? By the time he explains the truth, it might cause irreparable consequences. What about the complete video? Can you find the complete video? Right now, only by making Victor's explanation in the complete video public can we quickly and effectively end the online disputes. The video was bought by Hudson. He paid all the surgery fees for us, so now he might be the only one with the right to release the video. Victor's voice, which I used to like so much, now sounded so cold to me. The phone slipped from my hand and fell to the ground. The provincial team urgently contacted my superior. When the head coach called, I picked up, expecting to be scolded, but the other party spoke in an unusually gentle tone. "Glow, don't worry, we're figuring things out." The memory of that day at the interview site suddenly surfaced in my mind when I told her, the limitations of the body should not become a constraint in pursuing dreams. My team members have gone through so many hardships, and many of them see this competition as their only chance in life. If we can't win a prize and enter the national competition, they will have to face the prospect of going home to get married. This is not just my dream, it's the dream of all of them. Am I really going to let Hudson ruin everything? Shall you put the responsibility on me? I'll give up my identity as a coach and let the kids compete normally. Let's think of a way after the competition ends. But I know that once I choose to compromise, it will be a stain on my career, and it won't be easy to make up for it later. But the predicament I face is already so severe. As for my team members, they have used up all their courage to get here, and I cannot become an obstacle for them. I quickly packed my things and called Luna. Yu, where are you? I want to find. But before I could finish my sentence, Luna screamed. Glow, there's been a reversal. Look at the trending topics. The news that the complete video was released quickly topped the local trending charts. In the video, Victor's tearful explanation and the accusations from bystanders were made public, and the public opinion quickly shifted to focus on the connection between Victor and the mysterious person, Autumn. Within less than half an hour, the trending topic was completely removed, and the entire process was swift and clean. Soon after, a bland entertainment news article was pushed to the headlines. If I say that there was no one manipulating this behind the scenes, I clearly don't believe it. I thought that once Autumn's true identity was exposed, finding Hudson wouldn't be difficult either. So perhaps Hudson also didn't want things to continue escalating. However, I still don't know who is able to release the complete video and evade Hudson's plan. After this incident, Hudson never contacted me again. The competition was being prepared in full swing, and everything that happened seemed to be just a minor interlude in the process. The subsequent developments went particularly smoothly. My team overcame numerous obstacles in the provincial competition and performed exceptionally well, with the top 3 places in the entire competition coming from my team. The girls smiled brightly under the flashing lights, pushing their wheelchairs and embracing each other to the tune of Starry Sea. And it was precisely because of that small setback before the competition that more people paid attention to this event. The girl who emerged from the mountains won the championship, and soon some advertising companies contacted her, promising to cover all her future training expenses. Amidst the cheers and applause of the crowd, I received a phone call. The moment I pressed the dial button, an unexpected voice rang in my ears. Glow, you are really amazing. This voice was distant yet familiar, instantly pulling my memories back to my previous life. Chapter 18. In that dim hospital room, the television on the wall was playing a live news broadcast. At that time, I was suffering from severe insomnia, unable to sleep night after night, and I was nearly on the brink of collapse and despair. Until one evening, while listening to an interview, the firm and gentle voice of a female reporter narrated a brief news item. Leaning half on my bed, I unexpectedly felt a sense of tranquil sleepiness. Later, during those difficult days, I became accustomed to letting that voice accompany me to sleep. Until that day, her face appeared on the live news. They said that a reporter responsible for post-disaster interviews had fallen from the 17th floor of a hospital, and the cause of death was summarized as suicide due to the despair of witnessing too many injured people during the earthquake. The program replayed clips of her interviews from when she was alive, each comforting remark after an interview delivered with such determination and uplift. I did not know what had happened to her that would lead to her sudden fall from the building overnight. I only felt that the whole situation hinted at something unreasonable. Now, hearing that voice again, my eyes instantly welled up with tears. We arranged to meet at a cafe. Was it you who released the complete video? The person in front of me was named Julia, her round face gradually resembling the corner of the camera from that day when she was pulled by Ling's mother. I was relieved that, in this life, such a tragedy did not happen to her. It was me. Her voice was still so pleasant, gentle as a flowing stream passing through my heart. Why did you help me? Since Hudson was able to release such evidence to threaten me, he would surely ensure that all the key evidence was in his hands, and to achieve this, he would rely on money or power. As a journalist, she would likely be eager to use the evidence in her hands to exchange for Hudson's connections and resources in the media industry. Even if that were not the case, there would be no need to take the risk of offending him to support me. My daughter is paralyzed. She slightly lowered her head, her eyes reddening as she began to speak. On the day of the earthquake, we had originally planned to go to the park together, but I had to go out for an interview at the last minute, leaving her and my husband at home. Later, she was crushed by a falling pillar, breaking both her legs. And your husband? She smiled faintly. He was in a hotel downstairs with someone else. I found out about this later. In my mind, the hospital where she fell in the previous life emerged, and I speculated that it might be the place where her daughter was receiving treatment. My daughter loves dancing. Her teacher said she has great talent and wanted to recommend her to the best dance school. Her voice choked with emotion. She is still so young. How can she accept all this? She resisted treatment and was not doing well until... She looked up at me. During the post-disaster reconstruction, I attended your school's autumn recruitment, heard what you said, and told my daughter your words, even finding her a video of wheelchair fencing to watch. That night she cried for a long time, and the next morning she told me, Mom, I can dance even in a wheelchair. Along with that, she also gave me her already written farewell letter. I looked up at her in surprise, my mouth involuntarily forming an O shape. If it weren't for you, she might have died. If she were not in this world, I wouldn't know what courage I would have left to live. The black and white photos from the previous life seemed to still be in front of me, and my heart trembled suddenly. I realized that so much had happened invisibly. This was an ending I had never anticipated. Hudson contacted me, offering a huge sum for a video, but I told him the camera malfunctioned that day, and I did not record anything. Her daughter was seriously ill and undergoing treatment while she was also in the middle of a divorce lawsuit with her ex-husband. These heavy burdens meant she needed a large sum of money. She did not mention these hardships, but I was aware of them. If it weren't for you, I don't know what I would be like. One who accepts wealth without discerning right from wrong. What does wealth add to me? She looked up at me, her words still resonant and powerful. I once even blamed myself, thinking that I wasn't good enough to keep my husband, which led to my daughter's misfortune. But you said it well. We are mountains, not streams. Why should we stop because of small ravines? What I should do is make him pay. If your story must have a savior with a twist ending, I hope she is a woman. We are not always foolishly fighting because of men. Our swords can also point towards those cowards. She left me with these words, and then walked away. At the time of the entertainment news explosion, I was attending the fencing team's celebration banquet. This time, the one at the top was Hudson. What was revealed was the explosive news captured on Autumn's birthday. In the video, the two people in disarray hurriedly separated, followed by Victor, who was holding flowers and looked utterly bewildered. The relationship among the three was repeatedly discussed, escalated, and ultimately sparked public opinion. I don't know how Julia got the video from Hudson's good friend, but I know that betrayers will eventually be betrayed, and those who gather for profit will inevitably disperse when the profit is exhausted. This is the cycle of Heaven's law. Autumn's acting career had just begun when it encountered a Waterloo. Netizens compared her with the girl in the video and took a long time to confirm it was her. It wasn't until I saw her recent photos that I realized the stunning beauty she once was had faded away. Seeing that there was no room for reversal, her agent publicly stated that Autumn had been undergoing plastic surgery obsessively since her breakup, and after several failures, her natural beauty had completely vanished. At just over 20, her face was already stiff and unrecognizable. Without that face, she had completely become a pawn for attracting fire, notorious for her disgrace. Even the words she once said privately to her friend, Victor? I was just playing with him. If I didn't do something real, how would Hudson know to be sad? Were also leaked. I don't know if Victor pays attention to entertainment news, nor do I know what he would feel upon hearing this voice message. I looked at his still youthful face, and the 10 years of memories came flooding back. I remembered how he accompanied me through my rehabilitation training, how he held me tightly in his strong arms every time I fell. We will continue to monitor the further developments of this situation. This is reporter Julia reporting for you. At the end of the news, a familiar voice rang in my ears. The woman's eyebrows and eyes slightly curved, her tone light and graceful, yet carrying a sense of relief and detachment. Chapter 20. It had been many years since I last saw Luna. She returned from studying abroad, and to avoid her family pressuring her to marry, She accidentally became a renowned director while working hard to prove herself in acting. She found me and said that the movie based on my life was already in preparation. Many talents emerged from their director class, but the most famous at that time, Hudson, ended up in a miserable state. Now, no one in the industry knows his whereabouts, proving that he has been completely forgotten by the world. Luna asked me if there were any lines I wanted to keep, and I wrote a sentence for her. Many years ago, there was a person who gave up on himself. He told me, "Life and death are fated. Wealth and honor are determined by heaven. But what I want to tell you is that as long as you refuse to give up, it can also be, my fate is determined by me, not by heaven." I told Luna that I wanted to use my first batch of students as prototypes for the film. That once dark and thin girl had become a champion in the Paralympics. Every year, when she competes, she sends me a photo. The girl in the picture has shed her awkwardness and smiles vibrantly. That was a beauty that rivaled Autumn's, a beauty of vibrant life force. Luna invited most of the many students I had taught to participate in this performance. Those girls said that I was their savior, that I had rescued many who had given up on themselves, and unexpectedly, I felt a deep empathy, giving many the courage to live. But no one knew that my initial wish was simply to save myself. But in the midnight dreams, I heard the words of that woman sitting in a wheelchair. She said, "I am one among millions." When a person is trying to save themselves and striving to love themselves, they will emit a courage that even they did not expect. This kind of power is what the world needs, the greatest value that makes a person the protagonist. And I am grateful that this time, I became the protagonist in my own world.